Hi, my name is Carrie, and right now it's officially the beginning of the last day of 2017. It's actually 3 a.m. in the morning, and I've had a really tough year this year. 2017 has been kind of a horrific year for me, and I'd like to tell you a story about why it's so horrific for me. And I'm hoping that maybe I can help someone about with my story. And basically, the story begins early this year, the start of this year actually, and it started with me having breathing problems, which was something that unusual because I was told my entire life that I had allergies and asthma. So, me having breathing difficulties just usually would mean that my asthma was acting up really badly and I needed to take my inhaler. But that was usually more of a once a year kind of occurrence, not a every single day, every single month kind of occurrence. And it was becoming a every single day kind of occurrence. So things got started getting kind of bad. So I decided it was time to see a doctor. So I went to just your average GP, and she told me basically that everything was fine. I was being paranoid and I just needed to take my inhaler more often. So that was okay. I left it like that. And things just started getting worse and worse and worse until it got to the point where I just was struggling to breathe and I started getting really bad chest pains. So I went back to my doctor. She did the exact same thing, listened to my chest, told me everything was fine, sent me back home. Again, things started getting even worse. I started getting terrible headaches. I started getting really weak and tired, and life just became really difficult for me because I couldn't do anything because I couldn't breathe properly. So I went back to her a third time, this time me telling her that I needed to get a chest x-ray done, and her declining my chest x-ray, telling me that I didn't need it and I was being paranoid and I just needed to take my inhaler more. I was taking my inhaler almost every hour. How much more could I take my inhaler? But I left it like that and I went home. And just as I thought things couldn't get any worse, my breathing problems got even worse. And it got to the point where I couldn't even walk up the stairs because I was that breathless. And when I say walk upstairs, I mean 2 steps. And I was breathless and coughing and hacking like a 50-year-old chain smoker. Yeah. Anyway, I she was not doing anything to help me at all. None of what she told me to do helped, and for the most part, my blood tests came back normal, and they just had like a slightly spiked white blood cell count, which was normal because I had a small um, flu. So eventually things got worse and worse and worse, and it was so difficult for me to breathe that I couldn't even walk around. I couldn't get off my bed. I couldn't stand without getting dizzy. And it was almost impossible for me to navigate my way around school to get to my classes because I couldn't breathe. So my mom calls up my aunt, who, mind you, is a doctor. and she comes to listen to my chest. And my mom tells her that, hey, I think Kerry needs a chest x-ray. And my aunt says to my mom that, what? No, you're just being paranoid. She's probably perfectly fine. Then my aunt comes and she listens to my chest and she tells me, no, um, she's not fine. She needs to get that chest x-ray. So I go and I get my chest x-ray, and I was told that day that my lung had collapsed and that I needed to be rushed into emergency. I went into a panic, probably had a major panic attack, and I was told that I needed to get surgery to reinflate my lung, and I was petrified because surgery was one of my biggest fears. I remember them saying that if I didn't get the surgery, that things were going to get pretty bad for me. And I remember being so scared of having surgery done that I had actually asked my mom to let me die and not make me do the surgery. Which, now that I think about it, is ridiculous, but stick with me. So I get my things from home and we head to the hospital. I was to be put into emergency to be prepped for surgery immediately. While they were waiting, well, of course, they had to further examine me once I got to emergency, and they found out that it wasn't that my lung had collapsed, it was that my right lung was filled up with fluid. Why? So it was a little too early to ask why. They just needed to get it out of my lungs so that I could breathe. So they prepped me for surgery, and I had to get what's called a chest drain, which is basically where they take a tube and they insert it into my lung through the side of my body. So it had to go on into the side of me, through my ribs, and they left it there for quite a few days to drain what fluid was left in my lung. So um, the surgery was the surgery had to be done under local anesthetic without anesthesia because of my severe breathing difficulty. They couldn't put me to sleep because there was a chance that I might not wake up. But all that aside, surgery was done. It was quite painful despite having painkillers and being sedated and whatnot. It was still quite painful. But the day after that one, they needed to run tests to find out why exactly my lung was accumulating all of this fluid, because my right lung was basically almost filled to capacity with fluid, which is severely abnormal. So they did a CT scan of my body, particularly my chest, and upon doing the surgery, they found a mass in my chest. So generally, the protocol with when they find masses in someone's body is that a biopsy has to be done to find out whether it is benign or not. And they did the biopsy and they told me that there was a chance that it could be cancer. And I didn't believe them. I didn't want to. I didn't think I had to. So they ran the test. I eventually got my tube taken out. My tube. I eventually got my tube taken out. And they confirmed that the mass in my chest was cancerous. They didn't take a large enough sample to confirm what type of cancer it was at that point in time, but they knew that it was cancer. So from there, what was left to do was to go visit an oncologist, which, if you don't know, is basically a cancer doctor. And my oncologist said that a second biopsy had to be arranged to confirm the type of cancer that I had. So they did a second biopsy, and they confirmed that yes, indeed, it was cancer, and they told me that I have Hodgkin's lymphoma. Hodgkin's lymphoma is cancer of the lymphatic system. Your lymphs. It's cancer in your lymph glands. You have lymph glands all over your body. You have them in your neck, you have them in your shoulders, your chest, and you have them in your abdomen by your hips. In my case, my cancer is in my chest. It's above my right lung, and it was initially 10 by 20 inches. If you check any ruler, that's quite large. So the next step after I was diagnosed was that I had to get a bone marrow biopsy done to find out if the cancer had spread into my marrow. And the bone marrow biopsy was terrible. It had to be done under local anesthetic again because I couldn't be put under anesthesia because of my severe breathing difficulties. So they did it with me fully awake, and that's basically coring a piece of bone out of your hip bone. And there is no amount of painkillers that they can give you that is really gonna help you with that. But the bone marrow biopsy was done, and then once everything was confirmed, I was told that I had to start chemotherapy. And I was really, really, really hesitant to start chemotherapy because first obvious thing was that I was gonna lose my hair, and I had just spent close to 2 years growing it out so that it had finally reached the base of my back, and I was so happy about it, and I was I was getting ready to lose it. And you may think that no, it's just hair. What is she whining about? Nothing prepares you for the day where you take your hand and you run your hand through your hair, and when you look at your hand, there's a clump of your hair in your hand. There's nothing to describe what that feels like. I myself thought that it wasn't going to be that bad and that I would be strong and that I could handle it, but I couldn't. From the time it happened, I instantly broke down in tears, and I had literally filled a plastic bin of just hair. I just kept brushing and brushing and brushing and brushing, thinking that eventually if I kept brushing that it was gonna stop. It didn't. So I I took the initiative and I said that I wasn't going to be depressed every single day brushing chunks and chunks and chunks of hair off my head. I wasn't going to allow that to happen. So I took the initiative and I got my head shaved. Because I wasn't going to sit there and watch it all fall off and let that upset me. I had other things to deal with. Because in case, no, chemotherapy makes you feel absolutely awful, especially when your body is first being introduced to the drug. It's like poison, basically. So I had 8 scheduled months of chemotherapy, and each month of chemotherapy has 2 sessions. So 8 by 2 gives you 12 sessions of chemo, which when you're now beginning and you don't even know what chemo is like, looks like a mammoth task. And believe me, it is a mammoth task. It's the same way there's nothing that could prepare you for having your hair drop off your head. There's nothing that can prepare you to face what it's like to have those drugs course through your system. It makes you feel absolutely awful. You may think that I'm exaggerating, but I am not in the least exaggerating. It literally tears you apart. But that's besides the point. Right now, I'm at the point where I have finished all 12 sessions of my chemo successfully. And I am at the point now where I have to get a PET scan, which is a cancer scan basically, and that will tell me the size of the mass in my chest, whether it has shrunk, and by how much it has shrunk. And once we know how much it has shrunk, I have to prepare myself for radiation. Now, you may be wondering why I didn't just operate and have the mass taken out of my chest. Well, that's because it was a really fibrous mass, and if they were to try to take it out of my body, it would basically scatter into millions of pieces and kind of take over my entire body, kind of. Lack of better words. But that's basically been my journey thus far, and that's basically been all of my 2017. I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma in July of this year, and basically ever since, my entire life has been turned upside down. From day one to being told that my lung had supposedly collapsed, to being told that I had to do chemotherapy, to being told that I had cancer in the first place, was nothing I ever expected this year to be at all. It has been quite the struggle, and it's been something for sure. But throughout all of this, throughout all of the bad, I'm actually kind of grateful that I've been put through all of this, because it has opened up my eyes to quite a few things. And even though it's been a horrible experience, there have been a few good things in between. I can tell you some horrifying things that I've gone through, that I've seen other people go through, and I can guarantee you that all of that is worse than losing your hair. But I'm thankful because it has taught me a lot of things, and I believe that it's made me a better person, a more understanding person, for sure, a lot more patient of a person. Well, I kind of am a patient. Get my pun? Anyway, the whole point of this entire video is that I just wanted to share my experience with you and to possibly maybe even help someone who's going through this, who doesn't see the light at the end of the tunnel, someone who now has to begin their journey through this tunnel, or someone who doesn't even know that they're about to face this tunnel. I want you to know, for one, that it's gonna be okay. I want you to know that you should take it one step at a time, and don't focus on the end yet. There will be an end, you will get there, you will reach the light at the end of the tunnel, but take it step by step. I promise you it's easier that way. Because when I started 8 months ago with my chemotherapy, 12 sessions ago, let's look at it that way. At session 1, session 12 seems like it's so far away. And thinking about it that way wasn't going to get me very far. But what I did know was that every 2 weeks I had chemotherapy, and I looked at it as 1 week down, another one coming up. Let's just prepare for that. Don't even think that you have that much more to go. Like, don't even. Just look at it one step at a time, for sure. I promise you it will be 10,000 times easier that way. And the other thing that I want to tell you is that don't take what you have for granted, because you never know when it's going to be taken away from you. I mean, people don't think about breathing until it's taken away from them, and breathing becomes something that you have to relearn how to do. Because after that fluid was drained from my lung, I actually had to do therapy to relearn how to breathe. And believe me, that was painful. But yeah, all of that aside, I'm making this video for awareness. I want people to be aware that Hodgkin's lymphoma is a thing. Go purple cancer. See my purple background? See my purple cancer band thingy? I'm only halfway through my journey, and I'm terrified of the other half of it. But I've gotten through one half, and I'm determined that I will get myself through the other half of it, no matter what it takes. I'm willing to put in that sacrifice. There was a time through this that I didn't even think that I was going to make it to the end, and I was lacking oxygen so much that I was gray, and I didn't even think that I was going to live another day. And I've lived so many months after that, and I'm so grateful for that. And I want my journey and what I've been through to be able to help somebody else and make their journey a little less difficult. Because I watched videos just like this one, and it helped me so much. it's not going to prepare you 100% because everybody reacts to all of this differently. But if I can help anybody one small scrap of a way, I'd be thankful to be able to help you. And just don't take the little things for granted. Be thankful for what you have. Be thankful for everything. Be thankful the sun comes up in the morning. Be thankful that you inhale in the next 5 seconds. Just be thankful. And no matter what it is you're going through, it could be chemotherapy, it could be getting diagnosed, it could be fighting off a flu. Just don't give up, and I know you can do it, and you will get through this, and you will be okay. Just take everything one step at a time. I promise you, it may seem hard now, but you'll get there. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope I was able to help someone, and I hope that I have at least inspired one person in some small scrap of a way. But thank you for listening to my story. I wish you all the best for 2018, and I honestly hope you never have to go through anything similar to this. Any scrap of 1% close to any of this. I hope you have a long, happy, and healthy life, and I wish you all the best for 2018. Good luck and goodbye.